welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 11 of season 3. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And joining us again from his studio in New York City, it is Alex Patakis. How's it going, Alex?
It's going good. Sorry to have missed you guys last week, but from everything I saw online and heard on the podcast, you guys had a lot of fun.
It just means that next year you have to already, you cannot miss next year. So,
Yep.
But no, really exciting. Paul, you want to go over some of the final details from that as far as head count and everything?
I think for the watch party itself, it was 34 who entered the prize draw. So the club donated 3 of the current match jerseys for us to raffle off for free. So there was 34 tickets that I counted, and then 2 more who came for the second half. So it was a really great turnout for the watch party itself, and to watch it with so many people in Houston that were new to Houston was great as well. So there was a lot that showed up for the first time, a few who'd been once or twice before. So it really it brought them out again. And just the opportunity from our friends coming over from Austin and Dallas, that it was great that it was in relatively easy use and they could make the trip over. So it was nice that Houston was a fairly central hub for our traveling visitors from Texas. So it went great. I look forward to repeating it and doing it even bigger and better next time.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get some more people from out of town, like Brian Donnelly, who joined us from North Carolina. That was a blast. We had a good time. And next year I expect to see Alex Patakis there.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be there. And I'll bring some of these other folks from New York Wolves too.
There we go. Yeah.
They usually travel well. It's I guess just a hard time for many here.
Yeah, there were a couple issues that were going on up there. But yeah, we'd love for David Copey and his wife and Dan John to make it next time too. So it was a great time though. Look forward to doing it again. Had a blast. So, but Paul, we called it. We've actually been calling it for weeks, I feel like. And we definitely called it after the podcast. And so I must say, we've got to talk about Bruno. Yes. Yeah. And
that's true.
The Bruno era is now over. I think I know pretty much everybody's thoughts, including yours, but how do you feel, Paul?
It was inevitable, I think, after Saturday. Writing was on the wall, and I'm glad that they at least acted swiftly. So that's a positive. I think I'd well imagine that they've certainly been doing their due diligence behind the scenes in terms of potential replacements as well that we'll probably come on to, but it certainly seems that the stars are aligning for a certain someone, and call it coincidence or something else. I think it's all been set up in a particular way for this path to happen.
So there were some interesting quotes that were coming out. Alex, you highlighted Daniel Potence's. What was his quote with Sky Sports?
Yeah. So I saw this come out on Twitter after, but Potence said, "We needed something new or a different way to do things. Players were not doing so good at the training session, at the matches. Something had to change. If the club realized the boss had to go, we have to accept it."
That comment on the training sessions is bad. That's really bad. I mean, what do you think was the issue there? Do you think here's what I heard, Paul, and you can tell me if you think is correct. Do you think that blow up between Raul and who else was involved in that? Moutinho and Bruno.
Johnny, I think.
Yeah, Johnny. Yeah. Do you think that just kind of carried over?
It must have done. I think you could start to put the pieces together and tie it into performances and everything from that point onwards as that news leaked or broke or however it was dressed up. But again, there was no smoke without fire, I'm sure. And I think over time that'll come out exactly what went down. But it is poignant, I think, that things get brought back to the training ground. And if he was one of those managers that was very hands-on and stop-start and somewhat dictatorial, I think, in the way he wanted things doing. I obviously don't know what goes on in a professional player's mind, but I think after a certain amount of time, that's got to get repetitive, and probably you close your ears to it. I'd imagine that you'd be tired of it. You'd want some creativity. You'd want something fresh. I think the comments that you hear that perhaps he's a better coach than a manager or a head coach is probably correct. That if you have got a specialist trainer that concentrates on that side of things, then that's all well and good, but you definitely need someone to counter that, be it in tactics and encouragement of the team and getting the best out of the players, and just having a realization that you may have to be flexible in your approach based on individuals' learning styles and what appeals to them.
Alex, what do you think Lage is a good specialist at?
That's what I really don't know, because he came in and was supposed to be the specialist who brought a more attacking style, and it just never materialized. And I think the other strength that we were all hoping would show over time was, he came with a reputation of being good at developing young players. And looking back at it now, he didn't do that at all. Like some of the, you invest in Keanu Hoover. He was shipped off because of Bruno didn't like the way he trained and prepared, and he never panned out. Now I think Bruno still seems right on that, given how that's gone at PSV. I also thought, Wolves made a huge investment in Silva, and João Felix is this crown jewel in the Lage, crown, and they shipped him off on loan. So what was he here for if he wasn't here to develop the young players? If that was his skill, Fosun didn't give him the opportunity to do that, or he had the opportunity to do that, showed that it actually wasn't his skill. And then the club was like, well, we got to move on. And all that's left is these aging veterans who probably, who are on the team sheet every week because there's no better alternative. So I have no idea. That's the short answer. I don't really know what his true strength is at this point.
Yeah, I find it interesting. That comment was from Podence too, who was a regular on the starting team. So it's not even like somebody that you could look at and go, all right, he's bitter because, he had moved to the bench. Like if Bali was still around, or even Johnny or somebody. For this to come from Podence, very interesting. And I'll be curious to see where they go forward from here. And then Alex, you shared with us the Bruno's Instagram departure, and I'll let you read this this gem.
It was just so comedic. It's long. I kind of want to cut to the chase, but I'm going to really just, kind of summarize the beginning of it. He just thanks everybody. He's indebted to, to Jeff Shee, the fans, supporters, all the players, professionalism, this, that, and the other. But the energy at the end of this post is so hilarious. Because he says, we leave behind a successful first season with many remarkable matches and a record 9 away wins for Wolves in the Premier League. Now your full support is more important than ever. The team, which never lost a match with a striker in the initial lineup, will surely improve as strikers become available. He's so committed to that bit. That's his thing. I never had a striker, and when I did, I didn't lose. You won one match, and the striker you started tore his ACL before the goal was even scored that won you the game.
It wasn't even a shot. It was a pass that just went wayward.
I just can't believe he's still pointing to that. It gives me I'm picturing it in a movie scene. It's like Bruno's walking the plank and they're like, any last words? He's just like, never lost without a striker. And then boom, he sinks into the bottom of the sea. Come on, man. But
so I part of me feels bad because yes, he wasn't backed last year. I think everybody agrees with that. And even when he was backed, it was already after the season started. So that does take a little bit. However, good managers adjust to their personnel, not make personnel adjust to their system. And we never saw that 4-4-2 that we thought. And granted, last year he tried to, adjust with the back five and everything, but he never knew how to adjust his attack with the personnel he had. And yeah, João Felix was not walking through that door.
Yeah, I think you got to look long and hard at those types of adjustments that at the end of the day, you can have the best defense in the league. If you don't put the ball in the back of the net, then you're not going to win anything. So you do have to adjust. You do have to look for solutions. There didn't seem a lot of that going on when you're left to play Pedence up front as a false nine. That's never going to work in a month of Sunday. So probably that's why he was pissed off, in that he's been asked to do a whole bunch of stuff that he's really not any skill set. So I think it's we have to see it for what it was. It's going to be I think unremarkable tenure, quickly forgotten. But I would laugh if his Nostradamus position of after the World Cup and we'll be top 7 and challenging comes true. So that will give you an idea of what you can accomplish with that set of players.
Here's my thing, Alex, that really bugs me. If you're saying that, like, oh, we needed a striker, and he specifically mentions that, Diego will be increasingly ready. If you felt that strongly, why was he not starting against West Ham? Don't bring him in as a stub. Start him, and then if he gets gas, then you pull him and you figure out from there. But if you're going to say my whole system's built on this, striker position, then start the striker. We're not reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah. He didn't even, that's what it is so baffling to me, is it doesn't feel like he even went down swinging. It felt like he knew this was coming and he's like, well, I don't have a striker, but he won't play the one that he has. And even at the beginning of the season, like, I think leading up to that match, Wolves Twitter was, and I know he didn't end up being fit, but over the international break, people were like, if Hwang is healthy, he's got to play. Now, he got hurt on international duty, but he's a guy who's played striker before. He played striker at Leeds, actually wasn't that bad. And then we never saw him there since. And he scores goals at the international level. Like it feels like every Wolves international player performs better on their national team than they do on Wolves. What does that say about the man who's supposed to be getting the best out of them on a week-to-week basis, right? Like, I don't know. That's crazy. And one thing, just because I know you'll agree, on Saturday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm like, if Adama doesn't start this match, and it's literally your last hope, and he's the only player on your team that like strikes any fear into defenders, then what are we even doing? Mm-hmm. Like, what is all this even about? I wouldn't be shocked to see him start right away with the as
him
soon
and
as
Costa. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Especially if the man we think is coming in is coming in. Let's get that Spain duo going, baby.
So yeah, that is the rumor. In the ultimate you can't quit, you're fired move, Sevilla got rid of Julen Lopetegui. Is that right? Lopetegui?
I'm going to roll with Lopetegui, but I'm
not Lopetegui.
That's right.
Yeah. Man, come on. Can we not just get a Smith? So yeah, from Sevilla, who won Europa, has won several titles. Yes, this year they've been struggling a bit, and haven't been doing that well in Champions League, but you can't deny what he's done at Sevilla, at Real Madrid. With Spain, it didn't work out, but I mean, this is still a big name manager, even if we can't pronounce it correctly. Paul?
I think the writing has been on the wall for a long time, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was a perfect storm coming together that has had some dark arts manipulating it all in the back end, that it kind of seems too good to be true, that the guy that Fosun originally identified right at the outset of their purchase, all of a sudden is available. He thinks it's all coming together quite nicely, I think. And there's part of me that wonders kind of where would we be now if he'd have taken that role originally in the Championship and had that wave of success that Nuno did and capitalized on the upward momentum of promotion and so forth? Would we be already in a position of challenging for fourth, fifth, and sixth, maybe, and a regular in the Europa League like he's done with Sevilla and been able to win it? So I think that rarely is there ever a perfect managerial appointment. There's always inherent risk with everyone, but I think from some of the names that have been bandied around, I'd definitely more lean towards this guy's resume and body of work rather than some of the others that look promising and are showing some promise. But again, they're younger, they're in different leagues. It's a different dynamic to the EPL. At least Lopetegui's got that experience of different leagues, international football. He's got an element of working with younger players from the Spain under-21. So hopefully it's finally the right man at the right place at the right time.
Alex, do you think if Wolves hadn't been showing interest, Lopetegui would be sacked by Sevilla? Do you think that's just, coincidence, or was it legit? Like, you can't fire, you can't quit, we fire you. Save face.
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I mean, I think they probably. I don't know that they would have done it as abruptly, but I guess just based on league position and how substantial their fall off was, they finished fourth in La Liga, the past 3 years in a row. Now they're somewhere like 18th, kind of like us, and just look really bad in their Champions League group. I don't know. I think it's more. I actually. They already named Lopetegui's successor, so I think, like, from their perspective, it probably has a lot more to do with that they were waiting to line up their guy. But it just so happens that this is like sacking season all over the place, so it times out really well for anyone who's in the market. But I mean, I'm sure contact between. I wouldn't be shocked. Like, do you guys think they spoke before the international break?
Yes.
Like, do you think Fosun would have
100%.
contacted?
They've probably been talking for several weeks, would be my guess.
Yeah. And maybe
because again, you hope that you haven't sacked your manager without knowing at least an idea on who the replacement's going to be. I know we said this about, Fabio was sent on loan, so surely they knew the replacement, and they didn't. So we were wrong there, but surely in this case, like, you at least had to know there was interest there, right, Paul?
Gives me the feeling that, again, this has been lined up all along, and probably even before Lage's appointment, that he's the type of profile of manager that if you take a step back and look at it, he could well have been just a stopgap until they got their man, and now suddenly he's become available. Off goes Lage and he comes in. So could that have happened in the summer potentially? There was rumblings. There was probably discussions, I think, at Sevilla between Lopetegui and the ownership then about whether he continues and what have you. And that seemed to suggest that it was extending and carrying on. But I wouldn't have been surprised if it had happened in the summer.
Maybe they felt like they owed Lage at least a chance to try out the back four, especially once they got Collins. I don't know. Doesn't seem like Fosun is that sentimental. So I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Lopetegui thought, hey, I can still, it's tough to leave a Champions League team to a team that's not even playing in Europe, even for a manager. So I don't know. The one thing that concerns me, and if you look online, a lot of the, Sevilla fans are saying the same thing. His team struggled to score. That's probably not a good thing for us since we struggled to score, Paul.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you can see a lot of the parallels of his desired players in our current squad. So I think that stands us in good stead, that if he's pragmatic in his approach when it comes to defense, I think some of the comments that I've read about his attacking philosophy could really come off. But we have been burnt in the fact that that was Lage's stick, that he was coming in bringing attacking football and record number of goals scored or whatever it was. And we can't compare any league to the EPL in terms of chance creation and things like that. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think if he does get the role, I think it's going to be a positive.
Alex, is he on the sideline for Nottingham Forest?
I think he has to be, and I think it lines up perfectly. On it, they go on a run of very winnable, on paper at least, matches, which I think is very intentional. Once Wolves didn't get rid of Lage before the international break. Although that would have looked good too, because West Ham they're bad. That's a very winnable match. That would have been great to have 2 weeks of preparation and then come in and that be your first match. But I think at home, the debut against a putrid team like Forest, I would be shocked if the new whoever it is, even if it's not Lopetegui, isn't at the reins for that one. But it kind of feels like the writing's already on the wall. I feel like it will be Lopetegui. Which I will say, just to Paul mentioned what he's been reading about him. Like I don't watch Sevilla much at all, except yesterday, oddly enough, when they got trounced by Dortmund, because I had a special interest in it. But it sounds like he plays a really attacking 4-3-3, and maybe even we can get the 4-2-3-1. Listening to a lot of other Wolves content, I kind of, a lot of people had mentioned, like, remember that in the preseason and how good it looked and how we just never saw it again. Like, why not just throw Podence at the 10 and maybe that'll help alleviate some of your issues instead of playing him as a false 9? Like, I don't know.
I actually don't think Podence should be the 10. I think Guedes should be the 10. I think he can do it where he's playing a little further up, so he's like, maybe slightly ahead of the wingers, but still behind Costa or Raul, who's ever in that striker position. I feel like he could handle a little bit more, because I don't think he goes down as easily as Podence does.
Yeah. I think what excites me about the idea of Lopetegui is that if you're just comparing what he's done in the past and then just saying, let's just transport that into this Wolves team, it very much feels like João Moutinho would be on the bench, and you would have Neves and Nunes as a midfield pairing with Guedes, Podence, playing in front of them in a really attacking role. And they'll probably allow a lot more goals, like it'll be way more open, but at least there'll be a chance of scoring in that scenario if they're really pressing as high up as some of Lopetegui's teams have done in the past. Again, just going off of what I've read and the little bit we've seen of some of the teams he's coached.
So here's a good question for you, Paul. Would you rather us lose the way we've been losing, or if Lopetegui comes in and the offense starts going, but the defense takes a hit, would you be okay losing, but you're entertaining and scoring more goals? Pick your poison.
We still end up losing in both scenarios, which I don't really like the sound of. I would just hope that the second scenario isn't as bad, that we don't lose to the likes of Nottingham Forest and maybe West Ham. Even if there's a few 4-3 wins in there, at least it's 3 points. But I'm a little traditionalist. I'm a little boring. Give me a 1-0 win every day of the week. Backs to the wall defensive display. I'm a defensive guy at heart. That's what I get a kick out as well. So
it would just be nice to be able to fall down 1-0 in a game and not go, the best we can hope out of this is a draw. Yeah. And that's essentially what happened Saturday. It was like, well, and they were playing well in possession. It's just, again, they get into the final third. It's very much that meme of the drawn horse where it's like perfect in the back, the middle looks okay, and then it's like stick figure horse in the front. I mean, that's Wolves in a nutshell right there. So, but if Bruno had actually had his striker, as he says, maybe that wouldn't have been the case. Weird hill to die on, but at least you're dead, right? So, what's up with Neto's injury? I keep trying to find something. All we heard was Lage said, well, it doesn't look good, which this is the same guy who said that Special K would be in the team the next week after tearing his ACL. So I imagine if Lage is saying it's not good, Neto's foot just fell off in the locker room.
It seems you start putting the pieces together as we approach the game, and they're looking at training sessions and who's taking part. I don't think Neto's been seen. They've done some stuff in terms of recovery for Wang being out on the pitch, but it doesn't look like he's in a group session. Raul's in the gym on the exercise bike. Even Traore, midfield version, hasn't been seen as well. So has he got a knock? It's terrible. So hopefully these next couple of days we get at least some update and things that we can at least speculate on in terms of length of time out or who will be potentially starting on Saturday.
And I do hate to lose Neto because he is a super talented player, but at the same time, I'm not sure if they'll miss him in the starting lineup. I think
as it stands,
they'll miss him depth-wise, but
as what it was, but what was he being asked to do that was alien to that skill set? So,
well, playing on the right for one.
Yeah, there's two sides to the Pedro Neto that we know, and I think the one side needs to be brought out by playing in the right position and given the job that he needs to be doing, rather than being asked to do different things that doesn't complement him.
So the other big news that came out, and I'm sure Paul has plenty of thoughts on this, is John Percy from the Telegraph's reported that Connor Cody's option to sign with Everton is a mere £4.5 million. That's not great, Paul.
Not at all. For an England international, I think even those that look favourably on the deal must have thought that, okay, there's got to be something in place that at least puts him in the bracket of 15, maybe approaching 20 with the English tax and being in the England squad and everything that goes with it. And many would hope that if a good season for him means Everton stays up or whatever triggers the bonus, is, it could be even more. So to see that amount, it's a little criminal. It's like being paid in magic beans.
I mean, I guess, Alex, we can look at it and say, well, it's more than they got from Adama last spring.
Yeah, at least there is an option, I guess. But I just think it's crazy that we all assumed it would be some type of substantial money. You're getting rid of your captain, as we said, in England International. Not to mention that his value is probably going up based on the way he's playing. He's starting in a back four for Everton, who kept a clean sheet against Liverpool. He scored what should have been the winning goal, if not for, one of the closest VAR rulings ever. I think he scored at the weekend again in another win over Southampton.
Mm-hmm.
Clean sheet against West. Everton are getting results, and has a substantial part to play in those results. So his value has only gone up from when he left Wolves, I feel like, at this point. So it's really disappointing to hear that figure is what they're getting. And I also think, just in terms of what Percy cited as the reason in his tweet, Wolves are understood to have agreed such a low price out of respect for Cody's achievements with the club.
what does that mean? Like, what you shouldn't be getting paid on feel goods in the Premier League. This is this is a cutthroat business here. Like that to me was kind of just disappointing to hear.
So if he was, we don't know the situation in the background, but if he threatened to down tools and not show up, you'd think, well, have they just cut their losses to get him out the door? But that he'd probably be the last player that you'd ever imagine doing something like that, who's wore his heart on his sleeve for the love of the club and everything that's gone with it. So I'd love to know what's gone on in the background to even force this situation to turn out the way it has. If it was that damaged goods, however it materialized, I think it's a lot of people don't look very good coming out of it.
And by shipping him out, they really lost a lot of flexibility, because I felt like if they had kept him in the squad, they would have been able to move to a back five during games, or in this case with Collins out, instead of like putting Neves essentially as a sweeper and Johnny at center back, like Cody could have been in there.
Under the impression that you play Cody with a good legit centre back and he'd probably be fine. It'd be a complementing skill set. It'd need to be the right one. If Kilman or Collins is that one, then who knows? But that was always my impression, that people may be worried, but he'd probably figure it out and he'd work out.
And do I think he would have started every minute of every game? No. I think he more times than not would have come off the bench. But I was imagining when they did bring in Collins, okay, let's go the back four. Ideally, you get a goal or two late in the game, you bring Cody on and move to a back five. Make him try and break you down that way. I felt like that's what I'd do in FIFA, right, Alex?
100%. Yes. All the time. Always changing formation.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the more confusing things is that very similarly to how they did Fabio Silva, they ship him out and then figure out the rest later, and then it just turns out they never actually figured it out, or they did, but they did it with broken players. If they knew they were going to a back four, and if at that point Bruno knew he wasn't going to play Todi or Mosquera, right? Because like it's not like he hasn't had time with those guys. Mosquera hasn't been healthy. I get it. Todi played Premier League. He started Premier League games last season
against good teams.
Yeah, against good teams, and looked good. So if you don't trust those guys and you sanction this move and you basically alienate Cody and put him in a position where it's like, you got to go for 4.5 million and you don't have anyone else coming in, then what are you even doing? Like, again, it's just hindsight's 2020, but to think that they would trust Collins and Kilman to stay healthy and not get suspended at any point this season, crazy. It's these like one or two injuries here and there and suspensions, and that's the type of thing where teams that you're like, oh, they're way too good to get dragged into a relegation battle, but one or two of those things happen every couple of months, and all of a sudden like that's how you see teams with talented rosters ending up down there. So just puzzling.
How mad had Todi had to be on Saturday? Like, because he was all set to go on loan, and Lage said, nope, you're staying here. Okay, that's fine. So if that's going to happen, ideally somebody that has already started last year. It's not like Mosquera. I mean, he didn't start in the EPL last year, but Todi's got experience. Like, he should have been in the lineup, not Johnny. I mean, might as well put me at striker. That's a similar type move.
And I just taking
I have some crafty moves.
I believe that. I could see you being like sneaky good, actually, and very tactically sound, disciplined. Were you guys like at the time of the team sheet come out Central Time? Was it 10:30?
Yeah.
For Saturday? Were you like ripping shots already when you saw like Johnny?
Yep, I was about to get in the car and I went, "What the fuck is this?" And I showed up and I said, "Paul, what's the line?" And he it was bad. It was bad. But it was Texas.
No one could have said, Oh, I know what the cure to all ills is. It's to change formation, play Neves as sweeper, and bring Johnny in as a centre back. No one in their right mind would have come up with that as a solution. So
There was
my,
nobody at TextFest that said, I like this lineup.
yeah,
Everybody was like, what are we doing putting Johnny there? And then they noticed like Neves you never saw because he was always like playing sweeper back there. I thought Aaron from Dallas was gonna like magically teleport to London to strangle Lage himself. Just brutal. We're already kind of starting to talk about who should have been in the lineup. So let's talk about the game against Chelsea on Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Who should be in the lineup for the caretaker?
who caretakers and who knows? I think it's definitely turned into a free hit. I think there'll be an element of potential player power takeover that if there's been that all discontent, it'll be a case of, well, lads, you got what you wanted. Now go out and we'll be in your preferred formation, whatever that is, and let's see what you can do. So I don't know. That
I wonder what the preferred formation would be for the players.
That factors into it. So I don't think we can even really talk team apart from the goalkeeper, really, unless we know what formation it is, because it could change so much. But again, if it does go back to a 5, then we've not really got the parts to play it unless we have genuine defenders playing in those positions. And I could probably see Kilman as a sweeper. As if it's 3 legit centre backs, if it's Tote on the left, Kilman and Mosquera, I could see that happening. But I don't know. It'll be another interesting lineup an hour before kickoff when it comes to Saturday.
What would be the Twitter reaction to Alex if they came out in a 5-3-2?
Oh my god. I don't know how Twitter will react because there's just
who do you get mad at?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Man, it's kind of unfortunate that this game is taking place with such like a short deck in terms of missing Neves and Collins, because I could see it being a game where the players feel kind of liberated if things really did get that sour with Bruno and just coming out and at least looking like they're having fun. But instead you have this whole mess of like who can play where, and you're short everywhere. Everybody's hurt. Kind of stinks. The only thing I hope is we see Adama starting as opposed to coming off the bench, which I feel like because of Neto is now inevitable. And Moutinho basically has to play because of Neves' suspension, but he's another one that I feel like has just been playing every week with, regardless of like how it goes. Like there was never, I don't know, it wasn't a meritocracy, if you will. Like I heard Zach Lowy talking on the fan cast when he was talking about it. It's just like some players were just guaranteed a spot in the team sheet, and like that's another one. It's like the guy's 36 and we're still relying on him at week in and week out. Like, and we signed 2 midfielders and we're still putting him in that position. Where's the natural transition to like just a bit part player who's like great for the locker room and experience and such?
There is an outlet in this game, even with Neves out, to not start Moutinho, and that would be if Boubacar Traore is ready to go. You start him and Nunes or him and Matthias in the middle. You go with Adama, Podence on the outside, Guedes in the 10, although I think a lot of people would be fine with Podence and get Costa up front because he's got to. And then the back, you go 8 Nori, Semedo, and then in the middle, Toady and Kilman. I saw that Nate from Soccer Neophyte had that, and I was like, yeah, I think that's the one, except I'd switch Geddes. What do you think of that one, Alex?
Yeah, I really like your idea of playing Geddes there. I want to say, as down as I feel like we've been over weeks and weeks about so many forward players, I still think he's going to be really good. I think
I do too.
that Lopetegui or someone else is going to come in and like he's going to get that first goal, couple assists here and there, and all of a sudden he's going to find form, and we're going to be like, that's the 30 something million pounds. I forget what the actual fee was that we spent. Like that is completely worth it. So I love your idea. And I think he's always been better playing in a role off of another striker, whether that's in like a two up front or kind of a more withdrawn role and someone else out in front of him. I think that'd be great. I would love to see him pair with Costa too. And I said before, all I really care about is Adama. That's a lie. Diego starting at Stamford Bridge. That like you can't ask for more than that. And if the game devolves into just Adama crosses into Costa, like I'm here for that too, because it's better than what they were doing.
Admit it. The Chelsea fans are going to be crapping their pants every time there's a cross to Diego from Adama into the box. They're just going to be like,
He didn't look out of shape in that cameo, so
players play.
Being able to drop deep. He had a touch, had the skill about him. Certainly had the awareness in the box to get in the right place and put his head on that one cross that just went wide. So put a couple of those in the right area, then I think he could come calling.
And he's not afraid to shoot, which I think has been our biggest issue. And that is one reason why I'm still positive on Geddes, because he's still shooting. It's not like Trincao, where Trincao was afraid to like even look at the goal, much less try and fire a shot. Like Geddes is still firing stuff and nothing's been going past, but at least make the keeper work. That's all I keep saying. Just make him work.
Have you guys watched any of Trincao at Sporting, by the way?
Yeah. Like his goal, when was it? Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of how many
times? Minute.
Yeah. How many times did we see him in and around that area last season, and it filter out or trip over the ball or just completely break down? So,
and I think a lot of it does go back to the EPL is just a different league. But then again, he was doing that in Champions League, so I don't know. What I guess we'll find out soon if it was Lage or not.
Yeah.
So is that kind of what you're hoping lineup wise, Paul?
I think it's quite adventurous to be going to Stamford Bridge with a 4-2-3-1, effectively 4 forwards. I do like the idea of a Geddes in a 10, but a more traditional 4-4-2-10, in that there's the focal point of the main striker, which should be Costa, and then he plays off him, and then you do have 2 dedicated wingers. So whether that is Podence and he's a bit more inverted, and there's a more dedicated winger that hugs the touchline on the opposite flank, I think there's avenue there. But I'm just getting a little, not worried, but we run the risk of being too weighted on one particular side if Neto is out for a period of time. Obviously, Traore's preferred positions down the right is Podence's. So I'm still at that stage that I generally don't know which position Podence plays best after nearly 3 years coming on
2.5.
now. So yeah. So would he be comfortable down the left? I don't know. So I'd be interested in that that dynamic as more of a front two with Geddes playing off him.
All right. Well, no Neto, no Neves, no Lage. So, Alex, I'll let you start off with the prediction first.
All right. I feel like if there's a game to pick Wolves to score multiple goals, it's probably not away to Chelsea. But I also think in sports, a lot of times the thing that makes the least sense is what happens. So I'm going 3-2 Chelsea with a like who cares, throw it all against the wall type of approach from Wolves, which I think at the very least will just be a nice change up to watch.
Paul.
My prediction is exactly the same score of the last time I went to Stamford Bridge without Lage. 2-2.
2-2. Yeah. Interesting.
We're gonna have that bounce somehow, and it won't be a winning bounce because Wolves don't do that, and we don't do that, especially at a stadium like Stamford Bridge. So the best we can hope for, I think, is a draw.
I think Wolves are going to score first and score pretty early and be feeling good, but I think not having Neves, still not having Collins, I think the depth will kind of start to wear them down in the second half. So I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I hope I'm wrong, though. I hope I hope we're all wrong. And none of us get points, but we'll see.
Does Costa score your goal?
Costa
yes.
scores both of mine.
Yes,
there you go.
Costa scores on an Adama cross, and Wolves fans go nuts on Twitter, and then it collapses in the second half. Seems about right. But we see positives. That's the thing. Okay. Do we have any no stupid questions this week, Alex?
We do. First, no stupid question, and then the second one is kind of an offshoot of this, but this one is from Stu on the Wolves Fancast. He says caretaker managers are essentially supply teachers for adults, which I had to look up. What's
I assume
your best?
that's a substitute, right? Substitute.
Yes.
Okay.
Thankfully, Paul clarified that for us on Twitter, and then provided a picture and a story that I feel like he's about to tell on this podcast. So, but Stu's question is, what's your best memory from when this brilliant time happened at school? So when you had a substitute teacher.
So back in the day, our substitutes, it just turned into like a free period that they didn't want to be there. You didn't really want to be there. So you kind of got carte blanche to do what you wanted to. But my football related story was that it was my secondary school. So like early high school years, our drama teacher had to go on maternity leave. So obviously when it's maternity, that's an extended period of time. So they had to have a more long-term sub come in. And obviously with it being drama, they say, what is it? If you can't do it, you end up teaching. So this drama teacher was effectively a failed actor. And it was like, what do we know you in? Is there anything that we would have seen you in? And he kind of stumbled for a little bit and he was like, did anyone remember watching the show Josh's Giants? And Josh's Giants was a football kids program that used to be shown in the afternoon when he got home from school, set in the northeast of England, I think Newcastle area. And it was about this boys team and like, I think they were pretty bad, but somehow ended up on this magical run and got to the final of the cup and won. And it turned out that our substitute drama teacher played the referee in the final on that TV show. So he was all proud about it. And we were just looking at each other thinking, you what?
So for mine, this was when I guess I was a senior in high school. And it wasn't necessarily a sub. This person was getting their teaching certificate. So as part of that in Alabama, you had to teach the course for like 3 or 4 weeks. So it was, I guess, long-term sub kind of deal. And we had a project that was due, and I had completely forgotten about it until 2 periods beforehand. Luckily, it was a pretty easy period. And so I was getting all the stuff, cutting it together to put it together, and I realized that the teacher had no tape, no glue, no nothing. So how do I get this to stick together? And then I thought and said, you know what? Toothpaste, when it's out of the bottle or out of the squeeze thing, gets hard. I wonder. And it worked. I had a little thing of toothpaste, travel toothpaste, and I glued the entire project together using toothpaste. And I handed it into the guy and I said, "Don't ask why it smells so minty fresh." And I got a B. I got a B gluing something together with toothpaste.
There you go.
That is MacGyverism right there.
You see, I said you're crafty in many ways. My first off, the amount of movies you watch with substitute teachers is just incredible. There's a lot of memes about when you like walk in, you see the substitute, and that in my day in school, it was like this giant cart that gets wheeled out with like a big,
with the thing strapped in, holding the TV in place. Yep.
It's just like, what are we watching? But my best one is probably later in high school, because then you have like a little bit more freedom because a lot of your friends are driving to school. And there was one time that one of our electives, which was actually like student government, was like the class I was in, but we had a substitute teacher for the day. And it was a little bit later in the day. So the only period I had after that was like gym. So I was like, I could either stay here, watch this movie, then go play some basketball, or pretend to go to the bathroom, never come back. And that's what I did. And me and a few of my friends just drove to the beach. I grew up in South Florida. That's where I went to high school. So I was like, it's like 11 something noon, and it just turned into a beach day. It was a glorious day, I have to say. So I didn't spend much time with the caretaker teacher, but
and she probably had no idea either. She took her role, and that was it.
Exactly. And they don't know who you are. They don't know like your, faces to names, and it's just so great to have that that type of freedom. And then Steve Young tweeted in response, we might be going off the rails here. I need to know the origin of supply teacher. Paul, do you know this?
I've got no idea how the term comes about in terms of why we call them supply. Whether it was just there's a supply of teachers that you have to call up to fill these gaps. So
that makes sense.
No clue. Yeah.
And then he also says, what came first, Talk Sport or Sports Talk in terms of sports talk radio? I did look up when Talk Sport, if he's referring to just the actual station, started. It was 95. So I feel like Sports Talk has definitely been around a lot longer than that.
Sports Talk has been a lot longer. Yeah. It's been around. I'd say, I'm trying to think of when you could say it really was taken off. And I think it did in the bigger markets like New York and everything. It would probably be like when Mad Dog and Francesca worked together. That was probably one of the first ones. That was what, late 80s, early 90s?
It looks like Mike and the Mad Dog originated in 89, and I grew up a huge sports talk nerd, like worshiping those guys. And that's why my early career path was in sports talk radio. So that definitely came first, I would say. I think it's safe to say that was in the 80s, right? That like it really became a thing.
Yeah, and then Jim Rome came on in the early 90s.
Yeah. These guys are still around too.
I know.
It's crazy. It's just like they never go away. Yeah. That's it for No Stupid Questions. And as always, you can tweet them at us. WLW Pod is where we usually prompt you for them on Twitter. That's the show's feed. And also hello@wholelotofwolves.com. If you want to shoot us an email, you can do so there.
And that brings this week's show to an end. Thanks for listening. As always, we're going to be back pretty much same time, same place next week to review the Chelsea game, see if we've got a new manager, because we'll soon be previewing what could be quite a interesting double header in terms of available points. It's Forest on Saturday the 15th and then away at Palace on Tuesday the 18th. So could certainly get the everything up and running for the new guy if that does come to happen. So in the meantime, let's just hope it all works out for the best, ladies and gentlemen, and up the mighty Wolves.
Whole Lotta Wolves is self-funded, so if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities as a way to reach a niche audience, email hello@wholelotofwolves.com for our sponsor packages. Just want to make a contribution as a listener who enjoys the show? Then head to buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. That's buymeacoffee.com/WLWpod. We greatly appreciate any contribution. Up the Wolves.